Hello and welcome back to Swapnil's analysis, and I am Swapnil. Today we are going to discuss a very famous, popular short story of Edgar Allan Poe, that is The Black Cat. Now, you might have read this short story of Edgar Allan Poe, The Black Cat, and Poe, he is a very famous short story writer of America, and he is generally credited for pioneering this mysterious fiction which later on became the crime fiction or detective fiction or mystery novel. So Edgar Allan Poe, he was a he had that knack to write about the mysterious behavior of people. Means all, if you read his short stories, you'll find that most of his characters, they behave very mysteriously. If you read his another short story, The Fall of the House of Usher, where the behavior of Mr. Usher is quite peculiar, it's very strange. Likewise the behavior of Lady Madeline. So why do they behave in such a way? We do not know. That we will try to discuss. And Poe here, he was very fascinated towards this mysterious behavior of the people. Means imagine, he was writing his short stories before the birth of psychology. Later on, psychology came into existence. So we must give credit to Poe. Why? Because he had observed some people and he also noticed their abnormality, their abnormal behavior. So therefore, that might have forced Edgar Allan Poe to write his stories with the peculiar or abnormal behavior of his character. So his characters, today we can call them as a mad or abnormal, but the contemporary readers, they had no idea that why the characters of Edgar Allan Poe behave in such a peculiar manner. They could not fathom they could not fathom the behavior of the characters of Edgar Allan Poe. This is the verity. So what happens here, that Edgar Allan Poe, while writing his short story, he portrayed his character as if suffering from one or some another kind of a mysterious mental disorder. Because as we all know that psychology came into existence after the literature of Edgar Allan Poe. It did not came into existence while Edgar Allan Poe he was writing. So this short story is a very interesting one. It's a very fascinating one, and the title itself is very catchy, that is The Black Cat. And as we all are aware that in every culture, in every society, there are some superstitions which are attached to the cat and especially to the black cat, and therefore these black cats, they are considered as a bad omen. So therefore here the story revolves around the black cat, and the narrator of the story, he is also the leading character. No name has been mentioned. Excuse me. Though no name has been mentioned in the story, and here only the name that is mentioned is of cat, that is Pluto. The hero, means the narrator of the story, he is suffering from some kind of mental disorder, and he himself very much aware of his mental disorder or his abnormal behavior. And he did not born in such a way. He later on became in such a way that he informs us how the story commences. Because one of the very fascinating thing for me, when I have studied Edgar Allan Poe, that the beginning of his short stories, it is very fascinating. And in this short story, the beginning of the short story is also very quite interesting one. How does this story commences? Right? Tomorrow I die, tomorrow I die. And today I want to tell the world what happened and excuse me, thus perhaps free my soul from the horrible weight which lies upon it. So here, the narrator of the story, he knows very well that tomorrow he is going to die, and he just wants to burden off. He just wants to tell something to us, to share something to us, which he has not shared with anyone else, not with his close friends. So therefore, why he today shares with us? Because tomorrow he was going to die. And only because of that, he has decided to share the story with us. Had he not going to die tomorrow, he would not have shared this story with us. This is the fact. So he says that when he was a child, he was a very good person. That he mentions in the story, that I was a child and I had a natural goodness of a soul. Therefore, he what informs that he was a very good person since the birth and as a child as well. And therefore, he had got married very early in his life. And he had a natural inclination towards the animals. He liked animals. And many of the pets, means what he informs us, that the animals which have learned to live with men and share their homes with them. So he had natural inclination towards the pet animals, and the animals means birds, cats, dogs, these animals who have learned how to live with men, horses likewise. So he informs about us, and when he got married, his wife, she also loved the animals, and she also brought some animals with her. And the animals like birds, goldfish, fine dog, and a cat. And especially a cat, here he introduces why this cat, she outstands with other animals. It is because she was a black cat, she was large, and he named that black cat as Pluto. So what happened, that he, all the animals, they were attracted or they were very friendly with the narrator, but this black cat, she was more friendly with the narrator. But suddenly what happens, suddenly the thing happens that the narrator, he, as the time changes, the narrator also changes along with the time. He starts drinking too much wine, he becomes drunkard, and therefore all the animals, they start moving away from the narrator, but except the black cat. So whenever he would enter into the house, all the animal, they would run away from the narrator, but the cat, she would not run away from the narrator. And this was a very peculiar and strange thing for the narrator. Even the wife of the narrator, she finds the changed behavior of the narrator and his drinking habit quite very hateful. And therefore she also started to stay away from the narrator, but except the black cat. So what happened? This narrator, he found it very strange that, well, while everyone was running away from him, why doesn't this black cat run away from him? Why this black cat loves him? He had no answer to that. So one night he returned back from the inn late at the night, and he saw the black cat. And the scene is very finely written by Edgar Allan Poe. Therefore, I would like to read it as it is. And here I quote: As I entered, I saw, or thought I saw, that Pluto, the cat, was trying to stay out of my way, to avoid me. This action by an animal which I had thought still loved me made me angry beyond reason. So, what happened here? That one night when he returned back from his inn, suddenly he thought the change of behavior in the black cat. The black cat was avoiding him, and that made him angry. That thing made him angry. And therefore, my soul seemed to fly from my body. This is the very interesting thing. When he realized that now the cat, she was also avoiding him, the Pluto was also avoiding him, and then suddenly he therefore says that my soul seemed to fly from my body. He lost all the feelings. And what he at the beginning of the story informs us that since the childhood he had a good soul. That he had a good soul. Here, his soul ran away from his body. I took a small knife out of my coat and opened it. Then I took the poor animal by the neck, and with one quick movement, I cut out one of its fear-filled eyes. So what he grabbed the black cat, Pluto, and he just plucked out the one eyes of the cat with his knife. And what happened? Naturally, the cat disappeared for some days, and later on, the cat again appeared in the house, and the black hole, it was filled with the blood and all other thing. So the cat was looking really scary. And whenever he would enter, the narrator, whenever he would enter into the house, the cat would run away. And therefore he says that why should it not run? Yes, this did not fail to anger me. Again, the cat, after plucking out an eye of the cat naturally would run away from the narrator, and that also made him angry. And how he had justified his behavior, that is very interesting, that doing some evil thing for no other reason than because he knows he should not. So what here he says, that we human beings are very strange people. We break laws knowing that breaking law is a bad thing, but still we break laws. So in the same way, he knew what he was doing, but still he did that act. Still he took out one eye of the cat, knowing that he was doing bad. So later on, what happened, that he was very angry that the cat had started to avoiding him. So what he did, that one night he tied a rope around the cat's neck and took him into the cellar and hanged the cat in the cellar. I hung it there until it was dead. I hung it there with tears in my eyes. See here, he knew what he was doing. That is the very mysterious storytelling style of Edgar Allan Poe, which I loves most. That I hung it there with tears in my eyes. I hung it because I knew it had loved me, because I felt it had given me no reason to hurt it, because I knew that by doing so was a wrong, so a great sin, that so deadly, It would place my soul forever outside the reach of the love of God. He also realized that he was murdering that innocent animal and committing this such a so great sin. He would always be stay away from the love of God. But still, knowing everything wrongs, he was performing this act. Why? Because he was suffering from some kind of a mental disorder which has not been explained in the story. That is the knack of Edgar Allan Poe. So, what happened? The same night, after he strangled that black cat, after he hung that black cat to the pole in the cellar, he was lay sleeping in his house, and suddenly he heard some noises of his neighbors, and they were shouting, and there was a fire in his house. And somehow his wife and the narrator, they somehow ran out of the house and they somehow survived. But nobody knew how the house got into the fire. The narrator realized that it could be the mysterious power used by the black cat to take the revenge. Therefore, his house got burned down. But he had not shared that how and why he had murdered that black cat and why he did that heinous crime. It wasn't the crime, but it is the immoral thing that he had realized that it was a very wrong thing to do. Therefore, he says, I could not drive the thought of the cat out of my mind. And one night, as he was sitting in the inn, as usual, drinking, he saw the same cat, a black cat there, and he thought that, okay, I would buy that cat. And then he went into the owner of the inn and he asked the inn owner that he wishes to buy that black cat. And the owner said that he had never ever seen that black cat before in his inn. And suddenly, as he starts walking back to his house where he was now temporarily living, the black cat, she followed him. And there he allowed that black cat to follow him. And when he reached the house, his wife, she also loved that new pet. And the next morning, when he saw that the black cat, she was also missing a missing an eye. This was a very strange thing he noticed in the later morning. And thus he started to begin to hate the cat because he knew that he had killed that black cat and the same cat had appeared again with again the missing eye. So one day he and his wife, they were doing something in the cellar at the basement of their house, and as he was following his wife, he saw the black cat there, and he was about to put knife into the black cat. His wife stops him. She puts a hand, and in such a anger, he kills his wife. He put the knife, or he thrust the knife into the heart of his wife, and suddenly the black cat disappeared. And then after that moment of frenzy, he realized, okay, he had murdered his wife and now he must cover up. So there was a newly built wall where earlier there was a fire hole. So there was an old fireplace, and they had built a new wall, and that was a new wall. And he had realized, okay, now I can hide the dead body of my wife in that fireplace, in that fire hole. So he did it, and he was very proud of his work, that now no one can imagine that he had again he took down the stones and again restructured that wall, and the dead body of his wife was lying beyond that wall. So days passed, and his neighbor, they started to inquiring about his wife, and he dodged that question by saying that she had gone to her parents' house, she had gone to her village. But one day the cops came into his house, and he was very confident that they would not find anything. They searched everywhere, and while they were looking at the basement of his house, at the cellar, and they also could not find anything at the cellar. And then suddenly he did not know what got into him. He said, "The walls of this building are very strongly built. It is fine old house." As the cops were returning back, and he stoked that newly built wall with a stick, and suddenly all the stones, all the bricks fell down. Excuse me. And there was the dead body of his wife, black with dried blood and smell of decay. On the body's head, its one eye filled with fire, its wide open mouth the color of blood, sat the cat crying out its revenge. So then we realized that why he says that tomorrow I die, tomorrow I die, because he had been accused of murdering his wife, and probably he was going to be hanged tomorrow. Therefore, he had decided to share these thoughts with us. So this is a very interesting story, and do not try to consider that why the narrated behavior or behave in such a peculiar way, because all the characters of the Edgar Allan Poe stories, they behave in a very peculiar manner, in a very strange manner, and there is always a murder of a blood relative. So why? Because they suffer from some kind of a mental disorder, and because even Edgar Allan Poe, he was not aware of such thing, because psychology had not invented at that time. So what do you think about this story? This is a very interesting story which I found, and I thought that I must share with you. So if you have liked my presentation, please comment in the comment section, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. Thanks for watching.